I'm Paul.
And I'm Kenny. And this is EWPK.
Wow, dramatic.
I know. You know, drama is the way I roll. Drama, hyperbole.
It was beautiful. It was stunning.
I'm so excited. I'm just happy to be here.
Oh no, this show, I'll tell you this. Anyone who watches the show live streaming or watches the recording later is gonna love it. I guarantee it. All you have to be is some sort of sports fan or some fan of history.
Yeah.
Or a fan of just really nice people.
Yeah.
That would work too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's gonna be amazing. So how you been, man?
Good. You know, good. Busy, doing lots of things. Had some great time. You know, my son is back from college, so I'm always thrilled to spend time with him. He does have a radio show though on the San Diego State University radio channel. So I do get to hear him Wednesday nights. And his name is Jack. So, you know, Wolfgang Jack. No, Wolfman. Wait, Wolfman, right?
Wolfman Jack.
Wolfman Jack. For those who are
very old
enough. When I talk about what I'm drinking tonight, it is something that has been nurtured and matured, and I'm like, that pretty much describes us.
Yeah,
nurtured and matured.
I'm not sure about the nurtured part, and matured part is just a nice way of saying getting old, but that works okay. I mean, Brent keeps calling me venerable, and he really means old. So I get it. Well, you know what? I decided, you know, we've been doing some traveling to various conferences, Service Now, we were at Creatio, a couple other places. And, you know, one of the things we've been trying to do is figure out how to carry more our gear for the shows we do there and you know, the work we need to do more portably. And we, you know, because we used to carry what amounted to roughly 70 pounds of gear and cameras and laptops and things like that.
Seen you.
Got the cameras down to about 10 pounds, except when we have to do a major shoot. So I decided to go all in on reducing the weight of my laptop. The laptop was a MacBook Pro M1, and it weighs 5.5 pounds, which is very heavy laptop.
Yeah.
So I said, you know what? So I went out. I bought the iPad Pro with the M4 chip. I bought the keyboard. I bought the pencil. I got it today. I haven't set it up yet. It will replace my laptop. It's also, I'm running this whole studio off of the M2 MacBook Pro. I mean, iPad Pro. So I have to transfer all that. So I'll be running this studio off of that. When I'm on the road, I will be using it in lieu of my laptop. And that is, you know what the weight is? 0.98 pounds.
Okay, but out of all the pounds of equipment that you carry, it's your laptop that you chose to reduce by 4 pounds?
The others are all reduced.
Oh, that's about as far as you can go. So
you're down right now. I've got a backpack weighing about 10 pounds that covers all I need for travel. Unless you're doing a big shoot of some kind where we have to provide all the equipment, like all of it, and it's a big stage kind of thing, we're both moderator and producer director, then the weight goes up.
I have heard unbelievable things about the new iPad. So I think, in fact, I forgot the name, but I have that device that's designed specifically for e-writing. The Remarkable device.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine who bought that as well early, like I did, said that he's now just completely moved over to the new iPad. That it feels great when you write, and it's got, color, and because that's what I was mostly like. Does it feel like you're writing on?
I don't know yet. I literally got the packages there unopened. I got them like 2 hours ago, right? So, and this is my second show of the day.
Hanukkah, Paul.
Right? Yeah, Hanukkah comes early, way too early. So, well, the other thing, interesting, down the road, there's this feature. So, also they're producing a new version of Final Cut Pro, their video editing software, that's Mac only, for this iPad Pro. They have one already, but it's version 2. And one of the built-in features is that combining it with a Final Cut Pro app on your phone, you can literally do multi-camera live streaming wirelessly, completely wirelessly, with 4 iPhones if you want to, via the Final Cut Pro 2 app on the iPad, and stream. Like, we could do this show with not a single wire, right? Using
That's amazing. That is amazing.
It's not out yet. That's coming, but it's a down the road feature that I'm looking forward to. The other thing I'm totally looking forward to is, after we're done watching the Yankees, and the other thing I'm looking forward to is watching I don't know if the Rangers are playing tonight. I think they're not playing till tomorrow, but I'm going to watch the Rangers. I am literally into the playoffs. I mean, the Yankees are having this season I've been looking for them to have, and they're settling into a nice routine. So all is good on the sports front.
Wow, so much to look forward to in just a short period of time, even.
This is what you look forward to when you're 74. Right. Oh, watch the playoffs. I'll watch the regular season.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'll watch some more playoffs and some other regular season. Yeah, well, that's a great life, right?
Well,
So,
my Warriors are not in the playoffs, so.
No, I can't believe that one. There was my number 2 team, mostly thanks to you, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Steph appreciates that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, let's have him on the show so I can give him my appreciation.
Yeah.
So what's your beverage of choice this week?
Oh, I decided I'm decided that I didn't want to just bring a regular drink like I do, because you always have better alcohol.
Better, just different.
Well, different, but also better. But this is one of my favorites. It is Glenrothe. Have you ever? I'm sure you've had this, right?
I've had not the 18, but I've had other Glenrothes. Yeah.
Yeah, there are different maturity dates as well. But I just like this. It's very smooth. And I actually have I have a backup in case I drink all of this. But it's it's seasoned well. It's very full. I love how it sits on my tongue. It's just a beautiful. I mean, this is this is what not outrageous price compared to some of the stuff that you buy. It's probably what, 130, something like that, or
not bad.
Not bad, 150, 130, depending on where you go. What about you? What are you drinking tonight?
Well, this is an odd one that I've got it. I won it in an auction, basically. But I mean, this Celtic Whiskey Shop does auctions in Dublin, and once in a great while, I participate. And I got this, I think, in that auction. And this, I don't know, like.
Oh yeah. Oh, Teeling. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but you can't really see the labels a little small. But down here, it says 15, but here it says Muji Sochu. So Sochu is a Japanese spirit that's made out of things. It could be rice made out of barley. It can be made actually out of sweet potatoes, and it's an acquired taste kind of spirit. It's unusual. You got to get used to it. It's not clear, but it's almost clear as far as the color goes. And but it's a big flavor, and it's not designed totally for a Western palate. So you have to kind of get used to it, especially the sweet potato version, which
you had to even
have what?
you had to get used to it even.
Yeah, oh
Or
yeah, yeah. I have one bottle of actual sochu here, which is a sweet potato variety, and it took me a while. I finally now I like it, but it took me a while to really accept it. Took a few small sips. So this is kind of what it looks like what this is in the glass. This is the Irish whiskey.
oh yeah, yours is
So what it is yeah, it's actually they're very similar in color. This is a little lighter than
you're
yours, but
lighter, yeah.
so this is a 15-year-old Irish whiskey that's aged in I don't know what Muji is. I'm assuming it's a specific either kind of sochu or a brand of sochu.
How do you spell
Um,
Muji?
Mugi.
Hmm.
No idea what that is. But it actually makes the Irish whiskey. You pick up the you don't pick up a barley flavor. So I'm guessing this isn't a barley driven version of sochu, and the barrels thus don't pick up any barley. It could be rice, it could be sweet potato, but it's surprisingly. I thought this would be interesting. It's actually really good, like really, really good. Not expensive at all. I think it was the equivalent of 89 US, something like that. But you can't get it in the US. You have to order it. You can order it at Whiskey Exchange in London if you want to buy it, or you can find it at an auction, whatever. But it's available. But it's got a distinctly I don't know how to describe this starchy taste.
That sounds
It's not like bad that it's sweet. Think of rice slightly sweetened or just a sweet potato in terms of when you eat it.
yeah.
And you can pick up that kind of tone in the Irish whiskey. Again, this is still an Irish whiskey. Okay. So, I mean, let's say this, it's easier to accept than the actual sochu itself is. Um, and it's fun to drink, actually. It's just kind of a really enjoyable dram of alcohol. And, like usual, we show it, we sip it, but I end up, not drinking most of it while we're
Yeah.
sitting here.
It says that Muji consists of 5 types of barley with a unique combination of aging method, distillation pressure, and Koji ratio. That sounds
So it's barley, but this is
yeah,
a barley drink.
yeah.
Okay, well that I didn't know. I
That's a
would have
barley
literally
drink.
guessed
That's
anything
all
but
grain
barley.
barley drink. Yeah.
Well, the interesting thing is Irish whiskey's barley too, so
Yeah.
maybe that's why they chose that specific kind of soju. I don't know. Can't speak to it.
Well, based on the latest, I don't know if you've seen if you saw the latest demo of Chat GPT's model 4.0. I'm
I
sure
did.
we could have a nice conversation with one of the AIs that would gladly bring us up to speed on Moji
And draw us a picture.
and draw us a picture, and
create
also probably could recognize it by the bottle.
and maybe create a video.
Maybe create a video. I mean, it's pretty that was a pretty impressive demonstration of where they're heading, and the fact that they're offering that. I don't think, here's my 2 cents, is that I have not, and no one that I've talked to has been able to get to the response time that they were demonstrating there. So I think they may have done some demo maneuvers to make sure that the response, there may have also been some other support, I think, behind the scenes, but in general was still, that doesn't take away from kind of what they're doing. They're
Well,
moving.
it's one of those things that is much closer to what content consumption for millennials and Gen Z look like than the normal ChatGPT model was. It's great, don't get me wrong, but it didn't reflect how content gets consumed by these different generations, and this does.
Yeah, it really is really, you saw the demo where it could view what was on the screen and help work through it. The fact that you can interrupt, you can have a conversation. I mean, it's really impressive. I mean, I don't see how some of these other companies like Google and AWS are keeping up. Apple certainly, I don't know where they are in this, but it was a pretty impressive demo. So, and they're offering, it looks like, most of that capability for free. I don't know what that means to the paid, to the paid subscriber like myself, who expects some benefits from paying.
I literally, it's not really, I won't get into it because it's not really our show, but OpenAI's model is a mystery to me at a certain level. It's not even, I don't really think they have a very well formulated, I think they have a very well formulated AI creation, meaning technology strategy. I think they have a terribly formulated or a confusing business model. Between the lawsuit by the Times, going, hi, you're not going to get it for free. And then what was it, Altman or somebody over there saying, wait, well, we can't make money if you don't give it to us for free, which is literally the worst possible reasoning in history. And then doing exactly this, right? Giving you, like, I keep thinking, why do I want ChatGPT Pro when I get 85% of what I really will use it for nothing? Where Microsoft is actually taking their model, their Pro model, and giving it a lot of things ranging from, priority server, things like that, time and so that, and also a bunch of other features, but then that's Microsoft, which has, does not suffer poor business models, right? So I don't get open. I think AI is a bit of a visionary. It's an extremely visionary, total mess. I kind of the way I've been viewing it lately, just because I don't. The pronouncements they come out with the technology they come out with blows me away. The pronouncements they come out knocks me over just because it's so dumb.
Well, we know there's been pivots from the beginning in terms of what the original intention of that company was when Elon was a part of it. Now, of course, Elon is doing XAI, a huge amount of investment, but haven't seen much. Anyway, it's just a fascinating space. As you know, often things are crazy and don't make sense when they're first coming out. They're trying to figure it out. But I have to say that unless they're going just for pure adoption, which is the freemium, not even freemium, it's just free.
Right.
Not like a movement into having people pay. Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to watch, that's for sure. But like you said,
and the ultimate benefactor in all this will be Microsoft, I'm pretty sure. Right? Somehow they'll figure out the way to do it.
Oh yeah, and it was a brilliant move for them to invest into them. They've also invested in a couple other Inflection AI, a couple other things, but that was just a beautiful move because all the bad stuff, any of the bad decisions go to OpenAI, then the firing of Sam Altman, or Microsoft's like, oh, we didn't know, like, how dare you not tell us, and then they can help solve it right behind the scenes. It's brilliant. Yeah.
All right, so you know what I want to talk about though? Baseball, sports. That's what I want to talk about. I can't wait to do that. So here's my suggestion. How about we get over to the other studio? It'll take me a little while. I have to call an Uber.
Me too.
But let's get over to the other studio, and that way I can introduce our guest. What do you say?
Yeah. Okay. It's going to take a minute, but I'll meet you over there.
See you shortly.
Okay. All right. Scott here.
Yeah, you ran.
Well, yeah, because I tried to call Lyft. It took forever. Not gonna wait.
You know what? Traffic sucks.
Jeez.
I'll tell you.
What happened to
All right, before I bring our guest on, I got to introduce him. I mean, I have known this gentleman a very, very long time. I'd like to say we met at Northwestern, which is where we did when I was at the university, and so was he. I'd like to say we met at the Medill School of Journalism, which we did. But we also stood beside each other on the battlements during the 60s. And it's astonishing. You know, I'm looking at this, let's see, 54 years later, roughly 53, 54 years later, depending. And he has gone on to become like this astoundingly successful. Well, no, that's unfair, because anything he would do, I expected him to be successful. So it's not really astounding.
Right.
Let's just say he's one of the foremost baseball historians, probably, well, not probably, in the world. He's a leading member. I'm presuming he's still a member, but he's a leading member of SABR. He's done broadcast. I mean, this guy has done in the sports world my dream, basically. He has done what I wanted to do and be. And I'm very, very jealous. I really am. I'm not joking. He's written books which are marvelous. I mean, I think, I don't know which sales or what with him, but I do know this. I think one of the books that had the most impact is the book he wrote on Harry Carey. He more recently wrote a book on the Chicago Black Sox scandal, which was easily the best book I've ever read on that, and also on that period in baseball history. He's a fascinating human being. He's got loads of stories to tell. I think you even own one of the Harry Carey book, right?
I do. Yeah, I do. Absolutely.
Right. So, I mean,
2019 or something like that is when I'm thinking.
He can confirm that. He can confirm that. So I'd like to bring on my buddy and awesome historian, Don Zminda.
Don.
And there he is.
Thanks for that introduction. I didn't realize I've been living the life that Paul could have lived.
It's kind of
like the movie. It's like the movie Sliding Doors.
Well, listen, to prove it, I literally, when I speak on stages in Boston, I will tell people I hate business. And then I'll say, look, honestly, if the Yankees and Michael Kay walked in here and said, we need you on the broadcasting team now, I would literally say, see y'all, and walk off the stage and leave with them. And I would literally tell audiences that. I mean, you know baseball better than any human I know. And when I say that, I'm not saying that because, oh, it's my buddy and I should be nice.
Have you met Bill James?
And you know what? I actually like you better. I mean,
so do most people.
Right. Right. Well, that's the thing. I mean, you know, your sense of history is alive when it comes to baseball. I mean, I guess in a way, how did you end up being a baseball historian?
Yeah, why baseball?
How did that even happen?
Well, I've been a baseball fan since I was a kid. I mean, I went to my first game in 1954 when I was 6 years old, and I just kind of got hooked in the game. It was really my main connection to my father when I was growing up. Mm-hmm. And I kind of always had it in my head to have some kind of career in the game, ideally to be a sports writer. That's kind of why I went to the Medill School of Journalism, but I sort of crashed and burned along the way. When I got out of school, Paul knows what it was like in the early 70s. Jobs were hard to come by. I couldn't get the kind of work that I wanted to do. And just kind of out of desperation, I needed a job. And somebody said, well, you know, the post office is taking applications and you can kind of look the way you look now and not have to cut your hair or anything. And I thought, wow, this is fabulous. So I passed my civil service test and I took this temporary job at the post office. and stayed there for 21 years.
Low barrier to entry. Yeah.
Yeah. But along the way, I still had this sports thing in my head. And in the early to mid 1980s, I kind of got involved with Bill James himself and his cohorts because Bill was trying to collect sophisticated data. And I was kind of one of the original volunteers who would score games off the radio and keep track of play-by-plays. And then I would, using my writing background, I would contribute, a few writing pieces now and then. Bill actually quoted me in a couple of his early baseball abstracts. And I thought, well, there might be some possibilities here. Subsequent to that, I got involved with a guy named John DeWan, who was head of Project Scoresheet, which was Bill's organization. John moved over to Stats Inc., and I kind of moved over with John. And then it became a business. I started working part-time, and then eventually it became my career. I left the post office in 92, did publications for Stats for about 8 years. We did the Scouting Notebook. We did a book called The Baseball Scoreboard.
Yep.
We did a lot of books that were basically stats only. And then as the internet came in and people were not getting their data from books so much, Stats got bought by a division of News Corp, which was the Fox Network's parent company. And they asked us to do their research for their sports broadcast. So they asked me to be the director of research. I moved out from Chicago to LA, ended up working in broadcasting, and that was really the rest of my working career, was supporting Fox broadcast, CBS broadcast, Turner broadcast, a lot of local stuff. We did Yes in New York, we did WGN in Chicago, we did the Blue Jays Network in Toronto, we did the World Series, we did this. I did like 9 Super Bowls. I did 17 postseason baseball series. We did March Madness every year. It was crazy stuff, but it was fun. But I always had this idea that I wanted to write in the back of my head.
Mm-hmm.
So finally in 2016, I retired, or I was kind of asked to retire because the company was sort of starting to get a little bit smaller. And since then, since I've had time, I've been able to work on my own writing projects, which is where I've done 2 books. I did a biography of Harry Carey, which you guys talked about. That came out in 2018 or 2019. I forget which one. My second book was about the Black Sox scandal called Double Plays and Double Crosses.
Awesome.
That came out in 2021. And most recently, I finished a book, which is now in process, called Justice Bad Last, Ernie Banks, Minnie Minoso, and the Unheralded Players Who Integrated Chicago's Major League Teams. They all kind of had Chicago themes for one reason or another, because that's where I grew up and that's where I became a fan. But they kind of cover all kinds of different angles, and it's fun to do. I don't have to worry about getting rich off this stuff. I do the kind of stuff that I want to do, and it's been great.
So can you talk a little bit about the Ernie Banks, Minnie Minoso, your new book, basically, and both tell a bit of the story, but also talk to why you wanted to write it.
Okay, yeah, it's an interesting kind of roundabout story.
Did it find you, or did you find it in terms of the topic?
I kind of found it but accidentally.
Mm-hmm.
When I worked at Stats, we had a lot of sports teams as clients. And one of our major clients, really from the early days of the company, was the White Sox. And I used to work on arbitration cases and various kinds of stat cases for the White Sox. And Minnie Minoso was one of the most famous and beloved and best players, not only with the White Sox, but in baseball when I was a kid. Yep. He was the first Black player who played for the White Sox in 1951. And for literally decades, the White Sox were trying to get Minnie into the Hall of Fame. So on a couple of occasions, they asked me to help, like, put together kind of a statistical argument in advocacy of getting Minnie into the Hall of Fame. But what was interesting about the story was not only what a great player he was, but all the stuff that he had to go through. And finally, he made it to the Hall of Fame a couple of years ago.
Yep.
Way overdue, several years after he passed away. And I really wanted to tell his story. So I started doing some research. And the more I found out about him, and the more I found out about kind of the early days of baseball integration, just how difficult it was. I mean, people know that it was like 12 years from Jackie Robinson to Pumpsie Green with the Red Sox in 1959. But I don't think, well, there's two things that I don't think people appreciate fully. One is how much resistance all these guys met on the major league level. They were not welcome in baseball at all, even if they were good players. The second thing was that there were so many players who were a little bit after the Negro Leagues were kind of on the downgrade, who were maybe a little bit older. I mean, Jackie was like 27, 28 when he broke in, but there were guys that were even older that were good players. And there were also players who were not quite ready for the major leagues. And a lot of these guys got signed up by minor league teams, including the Cubs and White Sox. So started reading about Minnie. Ernie Banks was the first black player with the Cubs. Started reading about him. And I also started reading about all these minor leaguers that were great players, great people with interesting stories. And I thought, whether these guys made it to the majors or not, they should really be part of the story, because that's really, it's not only a story of baseball integration, it's part of the story of America in that era, in the 1950s. And the kicker for me was when I was doing the research on Minnie, his first season with the White Sox was 1951. He joins the team from the Cleveland Indians, where he was buried for several years behind other guys, never really got a chance. Hits a home run in his very first at bat with the White Sox, becomes an instant hero in the city. The team, which had been a second division team for literally decades, since the Black Sox scandal that I wrote about. This team, all of a sudden, they're in the pennant race. They're in first place for half the year. The city's going crazy over the team and over Minnie. He's a colorful player. He runs, he steals bases, he hits home runs, he's colorful. Everybody loves him. He's a superhuman being. I'm reading about the season, and then I get to July, and there's this series where the White Sox are playing and Minnie is doing this thing. And I just noticed in the newspaper that while this wonderful story of brotherhood and integration and people loving each other is going on in baseball, there's a race riot in Cicero, Illinois, which is less than 10 miles away from Comiskey Park, because one black family wanted to rent an apartment in the city. So I thought, I want to write about that too. Huh. And that story literally, the family, the guy's name was Harvey Clark. And the story of him and his family was so incredible that they really became part of the book as well, because this guy fought against this discrimination for years. And as people in baseball were fighting against discrimination, this kind of non-baseball story was going on. And really, that's really became the soul of the book. And I really think it turned out pretty well.
Wow. What happened with Harvey Clark?
This is amazing.
It's not
Harvey Clark. He sued the city of Cicero. They went through court trials. At one point, they had a grand jury in Cicero that investigated the case. Wow. They invited 7 people. The 7 people they indicted were Harvey Clark, his NAACP lawyers,
Oh my God.
And the people who were trying to help him move into the apartment, and one Cicero policeman. So the feds actually got involved in this story under Adlai Stevenson was the governor at the time, and they had a federal lawsuit. And this stuff went on for years. He never got to move into a white neighborhood. He got some money out of it, but he got some satisfaction. So now, when he moved into this, or tried to move into the apartment, he had 2 kids. He had a daughter and a son. And the daughter grew up to become the first Black national female news correspondent for CBS News.
Wow.
Her name was Michelle Clark. She was investigating the Watergate story in 1972.
Wow.
And she was in line to be one of the correspondents on 60 Minutes. One of the guys that I talked to said they thought she was going to be Walter Cronkite.
Wow.
They thought she was going to be Edgar R. Murrow. This was actually in the movie, the White House plumber story. Michelle Clark was interviewing, who was it? It was Hunt's estranged wife. And she had some dope on the story. The plane mysteriously crashes going into Midway Airport, and she's killed, and Hunt's wife is killed. End of the story.
Holy.
So that's Michelle Clark. The son that Harvey Clark had, his name was Harvey Clark III. He became a legendary news correspondent in Philadelphia and covered, what was it, the move? I think it was called the Move.
Yeah, 1980.
Riots in
and the bombing.
And the bombing, yeah, where a number of people were killed
11.
by bombing set off by the police in Philadelphia.
Bombed the move.
That's right.
Guys.
That's right.
In a building and bombed.
Right.
Bombed the building and killed.
And Harvey Clark III was one of the people who investigated that story. He talked to everybody in Philadelphia, and he was like his father. He did not let that story go. And he had an incredible life. He actually died just a few years ago. Never made it on a national basis, but he was really quite a well-known and legendary news correspondent in Philadelphia. So, I mean, this takes me through the whole baseball story, really.
Yeah.
You know, the what these people in baseball went through, and what these families outside of baseball went through. You know, it's kind of like a capsule of the times. So,
what did Ernie Banks? I mean, Ernie Banks obviously was known for his incredible, well, aside from his insanely great skills at playing baseball, and you know, Let's Play 2 and all that, his demeanor and so on and so forth, which was more, it's at least publicly very not even easygoing, just friendly would be a better way to put it. But given what he was enduring, how did he do that?
Well, you know, I think a lot of it was he was just the false front on his part. You know, he was like Minnie in this way. They were both lovable, friendly people. They did not push against discrimination pretty much at all. So they were easy to love because, frankly, they made it easy for the rest of us because they weren't being like Jackie Robinson and bringing up the case of discrimination and putting it back in the faces of Major League Baseball and other people who could have helped end the discrimination or at least make the situation somewhat more palatable. So, like, it's interesting, like when Ernie joined the Cubs, he joined them in 1953. The Cubs were a North Side team, but he came up at the same time with a guy named Gene Baker, who also had a great story. That's part of the book. But it was just understood they were going to live on the South Side. And I mean, there was one point where I think the Cubs were going to spring training, and they were on a train, and they picked up players at like Union Station downtown in Chicago. So they got to take this train down to the South Side to pick up Ernie and Gene. And one of the players on the train, he looks around, he says, "Are we in South Africa?"
Oh my
I mean,
God.
these guys were so cut off from their teammates and from the best player on the team. And, you know, Ernie just, I mean, as he got older, he kind of started pushing back against it a little bit, but really not to much of a degree. But I think he paid a price for it because he was kind of internalizing his feelings and not really telling it like it really was for him.
Mhm.
And Minnie was more or less the same way. But I mean, some of the stuff that Minnie went through was terrible. I mean, there's one story that I found when Minnie was still with the Cleveland Indians, 1949, and back then, us old guys will remember this. Guys like Paul and me. Kenny, you're way too young for this, but anyway, in the 1940s and 50s, teams would train in Florida or Arizona. Some teams trained in California, but as spring training ended, they would barnstorm. So, like for years, the Giants and the Cleveland Indians were two of the only teams that trained in Arizona. And on their way back from spring training, they would barnstorm back and play each other for like 3 weeks in all these little towns. So they're in Waco, Texas. It was either Waco or Texarkana. But anyway, wonderful town in Texas. Getting ready to play in a game. And all the white players are able to get on a bus and go to the game. Minnie, Satchel Paige, and Larry Doby get left behind. They are in uniform, and they can't get a cab to the game because the only way you can get to the game is with a black cab driven by a black person, and there were none available. So they had to walk to the ballpark in their uniforms.
Oh my God.
And in the story, I mean, Dobie was outraged by this, and Satchel and Minnie are, you know, they're just, that's life. I mean, Satchel went through that his whole life, so he wasn't surprised at all. And Minnie, you know, he just let this stuff roll off him. But you know,
Amazing.
what an amazing guy, really.
All three of those guys are in the Hall of Fame, aren't they?
Oh yeah. It took Dobie way too long. He was very old when he finally got elected to the Hall of Fame, because they really had. I mean, they had an appreciation of what Robinson went through because it was so public. But Dobie's story really got kind of buried. Like I wrote, one of the things was like 1952 July. It's the 5th anniversary of Dobie's debut with the Cleveland Indians. At that time, there were only 6 black players in the entire American League.
Wow.
Including Dobie and Minnie, and you know, guys like Calvin Griffith, Connie Mack. I mean, they didn't want any black players on the team. They fought against it really until kind of their kids took over the teams, and their kids were a little bit. First, let's not give them too much credit, because they started realizing, hey, the only teams in the American League that are good besides the Yankees are the teams with black players.
Yeah.
Namely the White Sox and the Indians. So they kind of joined the bandwagon. But you know, like in the story, like I spent some time at the Hall of Fame, and you can find this correspondence between like Clark Griffith, owner of the Senators, and Judge Landis, and they're talking about, you know, we got to make sure this doesn't happen. And you know, it didn't happen while Landis was alive, but they sure dragged their feet after Jackie got in.
Wasn't one of the, I think this was just an interesting side thing, and I may be wrong about it, but isn't Mimi Minoso the only ball player who played in 5 different decades?
Yeah, but it was kind of a Bill Veeck stunt.
Right.
And I really think because they brought him up in 1976, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and then they brought him back again at the end of the season in 1980, so he could be the first 5-decade player, I think. But because of that, he wasn't eligible for the Hall of Fame until a lot of the writers who had seen him play were no longer part of the voting block. So, and plus, people kind of considered him, sort of like, I don't know, Max Patkin or somebody, somebody who was
baseball clown.
a bit of a baseball clown. And I think that really hurt his candidacy. Bill Veeck's son, Mike, who's a character in his own right, he actually signed Minnie to play for the St. Paul Saints in the 1990, I think. So he became a 6th-decade guy.
Holy crap. That's amazing. Well, Kenny, I'm doing all the talking. Well, I should probably.
Well, I'm just fascinated with your extensive research on baseball history. My brother-in-law is a big fan, and he was wanting me to ask you this question, which is like, in all your research, what do you think has been the most significant change in the game over the decades, and maybe how has that impacted the way baseball's played and perceived today?
Well, I think the most obvious answer, in the history is when black players were finally allowed into the major leagues, because they were because they were so good.
Yeah.
And secondly, because they brought a style of play into the major leagues that really kind of hadn't existed in decades. Stealing bases, challenging the other team, putting pressure on the other team. That was a different style of play. And that was one reason why Minnie was so electrifying and so popular in Chicago, because people hadn't seen that.
Yeah.
People hadn't seen a guy, but there was one play where I think he scored from first on a stolen base because the other team just panicked and they started throwing the ball around, and next thing you know, Minnie's running home. That kind of stuff, it really happened. And there's a classic picture of Jackie Robinson, like in a rundown against the Philadelphia Phillies, holdouts pretty much to the very end, and there's like 6 white Phillies between third base and home plate, still trying to tag Jackie out, and they can't do it.
Amazing. So what do you attribute to the decline of black players in baseball, and obviously more Latinos now, but it's become, you see obviously in football and in basketball, not so much hockey, but football and basketball, obviously, is something that's very attractive as sports to the black players, but not baseball as much as it used to be. Because I know from my standpoint, my heroes when I was young, obviously was Mickey Mantle. Was because I'm a diehard Yankee. And by the way, Yankees are winning 1-0 on Aaron Judge's 11th homer, right against the Twins.
I knew you would update.
Oh, I always have the game up. I do it in the middle of meetings with executives. I'll do that. I'll tell the executives the score, right? So, right. So, especially if I'm in Houston, right? So, but my other hero, my number 2, and I guess my number 2, 3, and 4 heroes back then, one's going to surprise you, were Hank Aaron, Roberto Clemente, and the one that's going to surprise you, Veda Pinson. I loved him. Absolutely loved that guy. I always thought he was like this totally, and he was like black and Latino too. But he was to me, he was astounding for his speed, and he had the decent power, and he was a great fielder. He could do it. I love.
He was great. There's a story about about Veda Pinson that kind of encapsulates these times as well. He broke in with the Cincinnati Reds, and Veda went to McClymonds High School in Oakland, California. I think that was Bill Russell's alma mater, Frank Robinson, a couple of the famous players. And Bertie Tebbetts was the manager of the Cincinnati Reds. Veda was with the team for over a year before Bertie realized that he spoke English and was actually American.
Oh my!
Because Bertie just assumed that with the name Veda Pinson, he must be one of those Cuban players. So he never talked to Veda.
Oh my God!
Holy cow! Wait a minute, so Pinson after Cincinnati went to Cleveland, I think, and I think it was Cleveland. Wasn't Bertie Tebbetts the manager there?
Well, he had to figure it out by then.
Yeah.
I mean, Bertie he managed Hank Aaron, so I think Hank probably would have set him straight on a couple of things.
Look at this. So Hune Park, for those of you who don't know, is actually one of the leading industry analysts in the world of business technology.
Pinson really had a good career. The problem with him is that he was kind of front-loaded. I mean, he was good for like the first 8 or 10 years of his career, and then after that he declined. And he had a lot of years where he was good, but he wasn't great anymore.
Yeah,
and people really hold that against.
I know
guys like that. They call them compilers.
Yeah,
but he was an excellent player without a doubt.
He's I remember he won the batting title. I think it was 61 with 343. I think it was him on the National League.
What Clemente won it. You should know that I know this. Clemente won it in 51, in 61 with 351, but Veda was number 2.
Oh, that was it. So 343 was his batting average.
Yeah.
Look, I adored that man. I don't know why. I mean, I probably saw him 3 total times when I was 11 years old, right? So, or no, I guess I was older. No, I was 11. I was about 11 years old. So, but they were all basically, guys like Aaron. I grew up just idolizing, really, because I thought not because they were black. I honestly, at the time, I had no idea that it mattered really until a little later. But because they were just so good, and they were just these honorable people, right? They were like these really good people. So, Mantle, of course, was probably not as good as they were as far as honorable, but he's Mantle. What can I tell you? So I got one more question for you before we have to close. Who are your baseball heroes? And this could span the entire. You don't have to have seen them play. It's just over the full existence of baseball. Who are the 2, 3, 5 people that you consider great for, and people you genuinely love, right? Because of their achievements and the kind of people that you at least heard they are, because you might not have seen them play, right?
Yeah, I have a real affection for like the pre-World War I players, like Christy Mathewson.
Yep.
And Walter Johnson kind of overlapped the era, but I mean, these were really, really great pitchers. So I love those guys. Many, will always be on my heroes list. Ted Williams. I mean, Ted, most of the latter years of Ted's career, I was following baseball, and I actually saw him hit a home run once.
Wow.
And, he was just like this larger than life character. He was like John Wayne or somebody like that. I loved Ted Williams. And, Aaron, he was such a great player, and he was such an admirable guy. One of the guys that I talked to for the book was a writer named Terrence Moore, he's a black writer who was Atlanta based, and he was very close to Henry, and he wrote a book called The Real Hank Aaron, where basically it's kind of interactions between Terrence and Hank throughout the whole book. Wow. And it's a great book. I highly recommend it.
I'm going to read it, actually. Again, outside of Mantle, he was number 2. Hey, Kenny, do you have any baseball heroes? Did you follow the sport that way?
No, I growing up, my dad was very much into. I grew up in San Diego. My dad was way more into, and that was a connection I had as well with sports, more into football. We did go to the Padres quite a bit, and my dad is super good friends at the time with Tommy Lasorda. And so I think most of my baseball connections were the Los Angeles Dodgers growing up. And funny because a good friend of mine, Peter Goober, now is one of the owners there. But I'm just fat. You know what I'm just fascinated, Don. I have your Harry Carey book and read it when it came out, and loved it. But to be listening to you, and to be such a, I know I'm reading this, to be such a master in an area is just so incredibly impressive. I don't know how you. I'm curious, and I know we don't have that much time, but I'm curious how you go about actually creating a book on that. Like, do you use interview techniques and find people that you can interview? Do you use your research techniques, and do you already kind of know the arc of kind of what you want to talk about as you move through it? I mean, it's such a, and especially because you have a new book coming out, which is, when is that? When can we?
Next spring it'll be out.
Next spring. All right.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I actually keep a spreadsheet of interesting stuff that I run across when I'm doing research, and I kind of catalog it, where a story came from, and just kind of follow that. But when I get hooked on something, I really follow up as much as I can. One of my writing heroes is Robert Caro, who wrote the Lyndon Johnson quintet, hopefully. And his motto was turn every page, never stop researching. So like for this book, I won't go on too much longer, but for this book, like when I got interested in these minor leaguers, I got on ancestry.com, and almost all these guys are dead, but I was able to find family trees and get in touch with relatives and friends who knew these guys.
Wow.
And I got some incredible interviews
Hey.
from that, people telling me the stories, not only about these guys as players, but as people. So that's kind of built on that. I try to do a lot of interviews. I do a lot of online research, but like a lot of the stuff, you have to go to microfilm. It's unavoidable because like there's so many stories that aren't digitized yet.
But you know what? It's so amazing because some of these stories would never see the light of day, right? If you
It's really true.
Have that conversation, they just would go away and never be documented.
That's one of my hopes for this book, is that people don't know a lot of this stuff, and hopefully it'll bring some of it to light.
I'm sure it will. Thank you for that.
And thanks, Don. Don, will you be willing to come back to talk, have more of this conversation?
Anytime.
Awesome. Seems to be the only way I get to see you too. Right, so,
well,
less than 35 years.
There are other ways of getting in touch with me, Paul.
I did not know that. Thanks, my friend. It's as always, it's amazing. You're amazing, and love you. And I guess it's time to pick up those Ubers and head home.
Yep, I think so. Don, thank you very much.
Thank you, Kenny.
All right, sir. Well, what do you think, Kenny? And then we'll wrap it up.
I'm just always in awe of someone that is such a, I mean, this is kind of how I feel about you with CRM, but just a master in a space and like truly passionate about the stories and loving and the people And I knew that that's what he was going to answer, that it was important for him just to be a part of bringing these stories into existence. Because if you don't do that, it's as if they don't exist because they just pass on. So that's the good work that he does, and I'm excited to read his book when it comes out.
Well, and if you get a chance to read the White Sox or the Black Sox book,
I will.
He brings the era alive, which is what's really the power of the book. It's not that it's just, look, there's a lot of either pieces on and a couple books on the Black Sox scandal, but this thing, his book is so much better than any of the other ones. And I've read them all. I mean, it was always fascinating to me because I had to make up my mind whether Shoeless Joe was really just stupid and got involved or he was guilty, right? But you know, because he's obviously was an extraordinary player. So, but Don brings these people back to life. He brings the period back to life, and at the same time, you know, he records history that needs to be recorded with a perspective that it needs to be seen through. You know, basically seeing it through Don's eyes gives you the appropriate kind of perspective and context for the actual events, and that's what makes it so powerful. So, I mean, I don't know if you're up for it, but I'm up for bringing him back for pretty soon actually to talk about some more of this.
Absolutely.
All right, sir. Well,
that was fun. That was really fun.
And
it always is, Paul.
We will be back on, because this was essentially a late this is April's. Right, EWPK. So we are going to have the regular EWPK on May 29th at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. And Mountain and Central in between.
You know best.
Yeah. Well, we don't care about them.
Yeah.
We care about the coast.
Flyover.
Right. That's right. So with that, everyone, good night. And I guess
good night. Good night, everybody.
This has been a Players Productions Network digital broadcast.